provide and are, of course, very interested in is ability to assist our citizens with recycling. So, Brooke, I'm just curious, too, if anybody has any questions, I'll assume maybe you'll, if you want to take them at the end, I'm willing to take them as we go along. You'll keep an eye on that, see if there is questions that people have.
Yes,
I will. We'll just go.
I will monitor the chat for that.
Okay. And we'll go from there. And it sounds like we have a cute baby on the line, too.
Yes, I apologize awesome. For that.
No. Great. Okay. Well, I want to keep this really informal, but what I wanted to do was talk about, first of all, as a citizen of Salt Lake County, what are your recycling options? And a few of those that we'll talk about is, you know, what can you do from your private residence? And what options do you have? What do you do if you're in an apartment complex or you have a business? And the hard to recycle items, and specifically those items that are not included in your curbside recycling program. So first off, at your private residence, your household recyclables. Most of the cities and hauling companies within Salt Lake County provide residential recycling options with the trash service. And the materials accepted will generally be specific to that city or hauling entity. Most of them throughout the county are fairly similar. There may be some very slight deviations between some of the programs. But what you always want to do is you want to make sure you consult with your specific provider for details on what they do and don't accept. And also from your house, generally you potentially will have green waste. And again, your yard trimmings, your bushes, your et cetera, maybe waste from garden, et cetera. Now, of course, a great option is to compost that material yourself, but if you don't do that, there are several cities and haulers within the county that do provide a residential curbside green waste option. And generally, that will cost you money to do that, just like your trash service and potentially your recycling service, but those are available. The material that those cities and those haulers, what they do with that curbside material, it either comes out to the Transjordan landfill, and they use it to make compost and mulch, or it will come out to the Salt Lake Valley landfill, where we will utilize it to make compost. And residents can purchase that compost material back for $15 per yard, excuse me. If you don't have a green waste option in your area, there are other options where you can take that material in the county with some privately held companies that will also make mulch and compost products. Now, glass is not an option to put in your curbside. I'm not aware of anywhere in the county, but there are numerous glass collection locations available to the public around the county. And I will display a map here in a bit that will show some of those locations. And then also from your private residence, you probably produce household hazardous waste, paints, oils, leftover gas, chemicals, fertilizers, those kind of things that you no longer need to use, but we prefer that you don't stick them in the trash barrel for disposal at the landfill, but that you take them up to the hazardous waste drop-off locations that can be found at Transjordan or Salt Lake Valley landfills. And the health department has a lot more details on their website, and I will go to that website in a bit and go through that. So that's from your private residence. And there are other additional hard to recycle items that we'll discuss in a moment. Say you live in an apartment complex or you have a business. Well, the household recyclables from that, generally, if you're in an apartment, if your apartment complex does not contract with a local hauler to provide recycling collection services, then generally you're going to need to take those recyclables to one of the drop-off material locations at either Transjordan or Salt Lake Valley. We have drop boxes available. Glass, you're in the same boat as the other residents. You would need to take glass collection to some of those locations around the valley. And there's quite a few of those around the valley. And then again, you're in the same boat as the private residences with your household hazardous waste. You would either need to drop off that material at Transjordan or Salt Lake Valley landfill. Now, if you're a business regarding household hazardous waste, depending on how much waste you produce in a certain time frame, you are regulated differently. If you are an exempt small quantity generator, businesses can take household hazardous waste to the household hazardous waste collection locations at Transjordan or Salt Lake Valley, but you have to schedule those, and there is usually a fee associated with that disposal. But again, depending on how much you generate in a certain time frame, you may have to contract with a hazardous waste disposal company to take care of those specific items. Now, there's multiple items that you can't put in your curbside recycling boxes. Again, we already discussed glass, and again, there are numerous collection locations throughout the county. We've talked about household hazardous waste, those materials. But the other items, let's say, for example, tires, mattresses, and the Freon containing units, which your air conditionings, refrigerators, freezers, these items can be accepted at the Salt Lake Valley landfill for recycling. Now, keep in mind that not all mattresses, due to the condition of those mattresses, may be acceptable for recycling. The mattress recycler does not accept mattresses that are too dirty, wet, or have bed bugs. And also, we charge a fee to collect those to provide to the recycler, the same price that we have to pay the recycler to take those mattresses. And the mattresses that do not meet their criteria, they go into the landfill for disposal. And there are, I'm going to visit here in a minute, the map showing the recycling locations throughout the county, and again, a listing of some of the other items that you can't put in your recycling boxes, but there are other outlets around the county that potentially you may be able to take those items. So I'm going to change what I'm sharing real quick and go to some of those websites. So let's try again here. Here we go. If you go to the Salt Lake County main website, you can proceed to residents and services.
Hey, Patrick, sorry, real quick. Do you think you could share your screen with us?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's try again.
Thank you.
I thought I was doing that, but you know what? We'll get it here. Let's see, where are you? City, other applications. Okay, it doesn't want to come up. Let's see here. There we go. Let's try again. Okay, at the main county website, slc.org, at residents and services, there is a landfill and recycling page. That recycling page has information on the landfill, but it also has a recycling tab, which will talk about general materials that can be recycled. And again, if you're going to get very specific with your specific area, I would always contact either your city or your hauling company to determine exactly what they do accept, okay? And limiting contamination is really important, and I'll visit that topic in just a few minutes here. But the recycling page also has hard to recycle materials, and it goes into detail with a number of items. Some of these are going to be found and will be taken to the household hazardous waste collection locations at either Transjordan or Salt Lake Valley, like antifreeze, batteries, chemicals, electronics, fluorescent light bulbs. Again, freezers can be brought here because we will take out the Freon and recycle the metal, gasoline to the household hazardous waste. But there's also things like bicycles. Bicycles are one where, yes, we will recycle metal bicycles, but also there's some reuse options. For example, the Bicycle Collective in Salt Lake City. They take used bicycles and will try to refurbish those and provide them to people that can use them. Building materials, Habitat for Humanity, some architectural salvage locations, or if it's material just from a reconstruction and remodeling, there are some C&D landfills, or there's some folks that may try to recycle the wood. Again, things like cardboard, that's one that does go into it, but if you have bulk, there are some bulk options. But again, there's just a list of materials that you can click on to see where you might be able to take those materials to recycling, and in some instances, even get paid for doing it. Of course, like the metal, aluminum cans, a few things like that. So under that recycling tab, what you might be able to recycle, what to do with some hard to recycle materials. And then there's an interactive map here that does show some of the recycling locations throughout the county. Now, I know that the more I've looked at this, probably this map is not as up to date as possible, and I'm going to contact the entity that does update and take care of this map, but it does show you some places throughout the county, and you can click on it, see the location, and see just exactly what the recycling option is at that location. So as you can see, these blue ones here, those are the glass recycling options throughout the county, and they are as numerous as anything throughout the county. There are some locations where occasionally household hazardous waste may be taken. There are occasional opportunities that cities will have a household hazardous waste collection day. And for example, there's the location, trying to click on it and it doesn't want to click. I've got out the Salt Lake Valley landfill where we have just household recyclables available. So this map is available. There's also some additional information like recycling in your community, might be some additional information for your specific municipality, etc. So let's see here. Then household hazardous waste. This takes you to the Salt Lake County Health Department. They are the entity that is in charge of the household hazardous waste collection program. Again, like I said, there are currently locations at the Salt Lake Valley landfill, as well as Transjordan landfill. They are getting ready to construct a new facility down in Sandy, right along 9000 South and 700 West, which will be their main locations. They will eventually, they will maintain satellite locations at the 2 landfills. But again, household hazardous waste is anything around your house that is poisonous, flammable, corrosive, toxic, electronic products, etc. And you can see there's a listing here. It includes fuels, paints, pesticides, again, yard chemicals, cleaning supplies, batteries, cooking oils, all those kind of things that we'd prefer you not throw into the trash barrel, but gather those things up and take it to the household hazardous waste collection. And if you're a citizen of Salt Lake County and you don't have large quantities of these particular materials, they are free to dispose of at the collection points. So
I do have one question, just in regards to household hazardous waste. And I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but what about like prescription drugs and things like that?
I'll show you something for that here in just a minute, okay?
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, the prescription program is separate, but yeah, that's a critical one too. Keep in mind that the household hazardous waste facilities cannot accept radioactive, explosives, things like that, okay? So safe disposal, again, there's a tab. It's free for citizens in Salt Lake County. You would need to make an appointment for large loads or drums. They don't do any unloading for them, so if it's big stuff, you need to bring somebody with you. Again, the locations, Salt Lake Valley Landfill and Transjordan. They do occasionally have collection events around. I don't see any at this time, but take your fluorescent light bulbs there also, okay? Reuse. Once COVID came up, they stopped their reuse program, which meant there's a lot of things that people bring materials that still have usable life to them. And hopefully they're going to start their reuse program too, because they try to reuse as much of the products that they can and dispose of only what's necessary. And then businesses, again, if you're a business, you have to call and make an appointment. There's specific times. Businesses are generated, the rules pertaining to businesses depend again on how much you generate. But if you are a small quantity generator that is exempt from the hazardous waste program, you can bring materials to the household hazardous waste locations. Good chance you will be paying for those services, okay? Let's see here then. I'm trying to find the location relative to prescription drugs, okay? Well, prescription drugs, and let's do a quick search here. We'll go back to they do have collection points. I know there are collection points at the main county building, as well as some of the police departments. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, that's prescription drug. Well, again, you can bring those to the government center and take them to some of the police stations for disposal. And I'm sure also you can contact the health department. You keep them in their original containers, remove all contact information and the prescription information on it, do not put the medications in a bag. They do not accept syringes, inhalers, chemotherapy medications, ointments, aerosols, liquids, or thermometers. You can take thermometers to household hazardous waste collection point. So yes, there are prescription drug options to get rid of them. Again, you don't want to flush those down your toilet, put them in the sink, and you don't want to put them in the trash. Okay, I'm going to head back to, here we go. Oh, share, let's see here. Okay, so again, just some of those website links to household hazardous waste, recycling, and the maps. Contamination. Contamination is a big deal. People don't think much about it, but it is critical that you only put those things that are suitable in either your curbside recycling bin or at the recycling collection locations throughout the county. And it is critical because contaminated loads may be rejected, and those loads may be forced to go to the landfill for disposal. It's nothing worse than to see a load of recyclables that couldn't have been recycled because people have put contaminants into it, and those folks, there's not enough resources, and it's too expensive to go through and dig out those contaminated materials from the recyclables to justify pulling those out. Contaminated loads that are not rejected also cost more to process, adding to the overall cost of the recycling process. And it is expensive to recycle items. The recycling programs, in a lot of instances, don't pay for themselves, and it all depends upon commodity prices. But commodity prices vary widely through different times. Sometimes the recycling programs can pay for themselves, at other times they do not. So the less contamination that goes into those loads, the better it is. When I talk about contaminations, one of the most widely encountered contaminants are plastic bags. People just think it's all right to stick plastic grocery bags, wrapping bags, etc. And those are not recycled in the curbside recycling systems or in the plastic recycling. The only folks that do take those kind of materials are the grocery stores. They do have recycling locations for those bags. Now, contaminated loads can also damage machinery in the final separation process at the commercial processing facilities. And again, all that does is adds cost to the whole recycling process. So it's really important that you understand what you can and cannot recycle, and make sure that you keep an eye on your recycling bins and keep them free of those contaminants. And the same thing with your green waste. Only putting those materials that are suitable, which is primarily organic matter from plants. It's your grasses, your tree trimming, etc. It's not dirt, and it's not rock, and it's not plastics, and it's not trash, and those kind of things. It's not meats, and you can take some green food material, but it can't be anything that has to do with an animal. And again, when we run into those contaminant issues with the green waste, it just costs more to have to deal with those contaminants. So I would be open up for questions on anything right now. Any questions you have regarding any of the recycling options, or actually anything else dealing with waste disposal throughout the county?
Great. Yeah. So if you guys have any questions, throw them in the chat and I will read them off to Patrick as they come in. I do have a question about the contaminants, what we were just talking about in the meantime, is there a list anywhere of, what is considered a contaminant and what is not? Or is it just anything that's not allowed in the recycling bin is a contaminant?
I would say anything that's not on the list of acceptable items. Yeah. So, people, anything that's contaminated with food, and I'm not talking about residuals. I see a lot of people that put their pizza boxes to be recycled. Generally, those cannot be recycled because of the grease and cheese and et cetera. Now, your tin can that's been rinsed out, generally there might be a little bit of residual food or something in there. That's okay. But pizza boxes, any of your clamshell boxes that were utilized for takeout, generally cannot be recyclable. Styrofoam is not recyclable in the curbside. Now, if you have a lot of styrofoam that's not food contaminated, there are some places around that may or may not take your styrofoam. But again, it's not what you can't put in there, but you need to follow of what is acceptable put in there. Yeah.
That's great to know. Thank you for sharing. We do have one question in the chat. Roger said, why are some cities so restrictive about recyclable materials? And he said specifically South Jordan.
That they're very restrictive on what goes in there. There are some that are more restrictive than others. What I would do would be South Jordan. I know that there was some confusion a few years back that they limited some things, and then they reversed the decision on that. I'm not sure who the recycling entity is for South Jordan. I don't think the city collects it, but the commercial recycler. What I would recommend is I would recommend that they go back to either the city or that commercial hauler and revisit what they actually do accept as recyclables at this time, because I think it may be broader than they think, but maybe not. But again, whoever the entity is running the program, they can make it as restrictive or non-restrictive as they feel. And again, there are some other options available for those other recyclables if a person chooses to try to recycle those items.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Hopefully that answered your question, Roger. We have another question. Mamta has asked, how much of our recycling is actually processed in the county versus shipped somewhere else for processing?
Well, the material on the curbside is processed in the county, but it's bundled up and sent out of county, out of state, out of country, just depending on the nature of that material. And we don't have any involvement with that. The commercial recycling entities are the ones that take care of that. The commodity business on the recycling side is very dynamic, and it has been very problematic also at times historically. But I'm not sure if any of those specific waste streams have a reuse here in Salt Lake County. Most all of those things are shipped someplace else for further processing.
And I guess I kind of have a follow-up question with that. So to what extent is it processed in the county before it is shipped somewhere else?
Well, how is it processed here? There are several recycling locations, and they're also called MRFs, material recovery facilities, where your curbside recycling or loads of specific recyclables are sent to. They have sorting machinery that sorts those primarily into paper, plastic, metals, etc. They are then sorted into those specific units. They are bundled up, loaded up in trucks, and shipped to wherever those materials get further processed. So
Gotcha.
primarily, it's just sorting for transportation someplace else. Now, I will add one thing to here. There is a location recently constructed in North Salt Lake called Wasatch Resource Recovery that now takes food waste. And they take food waste from around the area, and that might be, they've got some pilot programs for households, but primarily from food businesses, grocery stores, maybe even some restaurants, etc. They take that food waste, they process it in biological digesters, and they produce pipeline quality gas that goes into the natural gas pipelines. So that's an option for people that have large quantities of food waste. And there is a pilot program going on right now that they're looking at residential collection of food waste that will go to that facility also.
Great, that's a great resource to know about and utilize. So thank you for sharing. Do you have any other last minute questions for Patrick? And I think I just want to ask one more clarifying question. So if there's just one piece of contaminated material or just one piece of, something that's not supposed to be in our blue recycling bins, they will not process or recycle anything in that entire bin. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. It just depends on the level of contaminant. And, it's those recycling businesses that receive these loads that make those calls. No, generally just a few pieces, but again, you would not believe, even people with good intentions, we dealt with it all the time. They make the effort to bring recyclables out to us, and they load up their aluminum and their plastic, and they stick it in plastic bags and throw that into the recycling bin. And that you can't do that. So the cleaner it's kept, the better. And again, we're not the ones that make the decision on if it's rejected or not. It's those entities that have to process it that make that call. But the cleaner it is, the less likely that it will be rejected. Yes, or cause them problems.
Awesome. And then we have one more question in the chat. Do you ever see our state doing away with plastic bags like other states have?
You know what? That's not my bailiwick, and I'm not a policy maker from that standpoint. I'll just tell you that at landfills, we don't like styrofoam, we don't like tires, we don't like mattresses, and we don't like plastic bags because they're all hard to deal with. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but that's up to the policy makers. I'm not a fan of plastic bags myself. I know they serve a purpose, but it'll be interesting to see just exactly what happens with the future of plastic bags.
Great. Yeah, that will be very interesting to see moving forward. And I don't see any other questions thus far. Just a reminder, if you are a Healthy Lifestyles participant, be sure to click on the link in the chat so that you can receive your Healthy Lifestyles points for tuning in and participating today. Thank you so much, Patrick, for your wonderful presentation. I feel like it was very informative. Lots of great information. The county has a lot of great information on their website, and we appreciate you being here. We
Well,
have,
thank you for the
thank you.
thank you for the opportunity today, and everybody have a safe week.
Yes, you as well. Everyone's just saying thank you and that they enjoyed the